I'm Aron, and I am a mix engineer, primarily producer and recording engineer. And I've been doing this for a little over 25 years now. I've done a lot of death row records, and since I moved to LA, I was doing a lot of West Coast rap. I worked with Sublime. I worked with, Snoop Dogg. I mixed All Eyes on Me for Tupac. Ever since those albums with Dog Food for Dog Pound and all that, things have really taken off. And seems like that's all you need is a few credits and everything starts to work. My dad was a trumpet player. My mom was a band director. And, I took piano lessons since I was a kid, and I picked up bass, clarinet, saxophone. So I played a lot of stuff and actually got voted most musical in high school. And I guess that gave me a little encouragement. I didn't really enjoy performing the same way as a lot of performers, I think, do. I think my passion was more of putting the big picture together. And I was fortunate. My mom saw that in me and suggested to me that maybe I'd like to do some engineering work that was in the studios. We didn't really know what it was called or whatever. We didn't know it was an engineer, but it was some dude in the studio who puts all this stuff together and works the board and works all the electronics and everything like that. And she thought I might be more interested in doing something like that, putting the whole musical picture together. And that really appealed to me, working with different artists, working, kind of directing them into trying to achieve their vision. And to me, I just felt that there was a little more chance of longevity, if anything, by working with different artists throughout their careers, where my career would still keep lasting, as the artists might be big at one time and fall off at other times. So I thought in my head at that point that this might be the right thing for me. I mean, in high school, I did enjoy getting out and playing solos and, getting applause and, but I knew I was the best one in the band. In our band, I don't think that was saying very much. Our school, we had some fine musicians in there, but as far as I think there was like some great musicians when I was a sophomore and they were a senior, and then there was guys who were juniors, and then by the time I got to be a senior, I was probably the best one in the band. And at that point, I enjoyed it then, but I didn't think I wanted to do it for a living. And as you see now, it's all come full circle. I'm still in front of the lights and still in front of the cameras, just doing what I did. So I guess, if it's your destiny, you can't escape it. I was working at a karaoke shop, and people would come in and they would ask me to record their vocals more than all the other people that worked at the karaoke shop, because they knew that I was going to make them sound good. I put just the right effects on them, just enough, and all of that. And so it was really funny that was really like my first real engineering job was at a karaoke shop. But the owner of the karaoke shop ended up buying Sun Studios, and it was closed down for years and years. But it was just a historic building that was just sitting there unattended, and it was, I think, hard to believe for him. So he bought it and turned it into a real nice studio, a growing business, and all of that. So I became the chief engineer over there and the studio manager at the same time, right out of college. And I just thought, this is a nice experience, and I'm going to learn a lot through this gig. I learned a lot on how to record live instruments, B3s, drums, how to record vocals. We had a lot of nice old mics there that I could appreciate, because I only learned on U87s and AKG 414s, but they had like Shure 56s and RCA 44s and RCA 77s. And, those are things that I hadn't worked with before. So I ended up learning a lot about making music organically. And I think that still adds a lot of value to what I do today, So then while I was working at Sun, this band called up and they said they wanted to come do their record at Sun, but they wouldn't really disclose who they were at that point. But I said, yeah, we can still set it up. We can make it all work. And as it got closer and closer, I found out that it was going to be U2, that they wanted to come in and they wanted to just capture the vibe of the Sun studio place. And Joshua Tree was out on the market and it was doing incredibly well. They were my favorite band at the time. So you could imagine how excited I was when I found out U2 was coming in. I was just like, really, this is incredible. So it was very exciting for me, and I think that when they did come in and we did the session, it went so smoothly and it went so awesomely. I think that it made me believe that anything is possible at that point, you know, whereas maybe before I might have thought, this is going to be a tough climb, you know, and who knows when you're ever going to hook up with artists who are relevant, who really mean something. But after the U2 session, it just gave me a newfound belief in myself and a newfound belief in the business and what could really happen. And from there, I think that was just a really strong point on what led me to my career and moving to Los Angeles and, you know, and working with artists out there. I just was comfortable working with smaller bands and smaller studios and things like that. You know, I think it just, until that U2 thing, it meant a lot to me. But there was one band that was signed, and they were called Human Radio. And a guy named David Leonard was recording and mixing their project. And I would go to the studio, because I was friends with that band, and I wasn't working, getting paid or anything, but I would go help them out. I would do stuff. I learned, you know, I would patch things. I'd go make runs. Whatever they needed, I would do, you know. And by the time that session was over, I was speaking with David Leonard, who was mixing the Bangles. He was mixing, I mean, just so many big albums at the time. And he was making more money in one day than I could possibly even dream of making in a month, you know. And this he was making every day. And he was working these huge albums, getting #1 things. And I was just like, I'm going to listen to this guy. And he told me, Dave, you know, you seem like you kind of have it together. You know what you're doing, but I don't know if you're really going to make it big here. You know, there's just not enough action. You know, you ought to move to where the music is. And I said, wow, you think? I thought I was doing good here in Memphis, you know, but you know, when you're young, you don't know any better, you know. I was barely 20-something years old, you know, and I didn't know what the right thing to do was. I was just trying to feel it out. But when David Leonard told me that, I took it to heart. And 10 days later, I packed up my stuff. I put my car, attached it onto a truck, and I moved to Los Angeles. And I was like, I'm going to either go out there. I've seen people come out there before and not make it, but they would turn around and come back. I told myself, that's not going to happen to you. I'm not going to turn around and come back. I'm either going to make it there or just die or move to Hawaii or something, you know, but I'm not going back without anything under my belt. And I think just that pure determination led me to a lot of good things. And it just seemed cosmically, basically, that it was the right place to be. It just seemed like everything was falling in place. I was getting interviews, I was getting interest, I was getting jobs, people liked me, and it just seemed like it was going to work out there. So I saw David Leonard. I went to visit him at his studio when he was mixing, and I said, hey, I'm here, you know? And I was like, what do I do now, you know? I thought he was going to hook me up with some jobs or send me to some people or give me some help in connections and all that. And he was like, no, you need to go find the best job you can find at a studio and go get a job. And I was like, really? All right, I'm just on my own. And I think that's an important lesson for students, you know, is that, you know, everyone's not there to help you. They might guide you, they might give you some advice, they might, you know, give you some inspiration, some motivation, maybe tell you the right things to do, the right places to be, but it's not that you're not going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And I realized that at that moment. I said, I'm not going to get help from anybody. I need to go get this on my own. So I applied at the 5 best studios I could think of, went to the 2nd best, went to the 3rd best, finally got a job, came back to Larrabee, who I had applied with before. They said they didn't have a spot. Now all of a sudden they did have a spot. And it was only maybe 3 weeks later. So I quit my job at Music Grinder. I went over to Larrabee, started as a runner, and worked my way up. And I think it was important that I used to say I'd never want to be a runner. I was like, I'm going to skip right past that and go right to engineering, you know. But I think that was, again, youth, pretty much dumb youth just talking, you know. And once I resigned to the fact that I probably do need to be a runner and try to learn studio etiquette and try to learn what people are looking for in there and everything like that, it helped me a lot to realize what the industry was all about. And I quickly moved up to assisted for 2 years, and then embarked on my independent career. I started working with a lot of other rappers who were getting going. Rap seemed to be really picking up in the West Coast and LA, and there was work there. It just seemed, once I quit Larrabee, I was out of work. And there was a lot of work to be had with some of these rappers and things. I think a lot of the engineers really didn't want that work, and they didn't want to be a part of it, and they may have even been scared to work with some of these people, and I wasn't scared to work with these people. I went to school at an all-black high school, kind of, hard knocks over there where I went to high school, and it was nothing to me to work with rappers and thugs and people like that. It was nothing, it was just like being in high school to me. So when Larrabee would call me, they'd say, do you want to work with some of the death row guys who would come in? It was Daz Dillinger specifically, who would come in, and he would make all his music at Larrabee, and he wanted a good engineer. And they would call me up and say, if you want to work, go over here and work. And they were only going to pay me assistant pay, but I would be engineering it. So I did that, and Daz started to love me, and we hit it off right away, and we started working on all kinds of stuff, and dog pound, dog food record, and all that stuff. And Snoop would come in and drop vocals since Daz was his cousin. And they had done the Chronic together, and they'd done a bunch of stuff together. They just worked on Doggy Style, and, that was his cousin, and he's still with him today. And, through that, Daz was always kind of bragging on me. Yeah, that's my engineer, he's great, and da-da-da. And Snoop just, I think, got sick of hearing all that stuff and going, man, you want to be my engineer? And he just kind of plucked me up and took me off, and we started making Snoop albums together through that. And again, I hit it off really well with Snoop. We had a lot of things in common. We liked the same sports teams. We liked a lot of extracurricular activities together. We played Xbox, together. We just liked each other, and I never set out to be his friend or anything like that. I just wanted a good client. But, it blossomed. It blossomed into a beautiful friendship between us, really, and I love the guy like a brother, and I would pretty much feel he feels the same way about me. Building relationships, I say, is probably the most important thing that you can do as far as your career goes. You want to build these relationships with your client. You want to build relationships with the record company people who can trust you and know you're going to get the job done well. The people in the studio, like your artists, know that you're going to get along. You have a bond at some point, and you develop some sort of even loyalty at some point, And once you get to that stage, they're not calling other people. They're not looking for just a good engineer anymore. They're looking for you, specifically. And I think that makes a big difference. That's what really keeps you working. You don't want a one-time client to come in and work once and then never come back. You need repeat business, just like any other business, any other restaurant or anything. You're looking for repeat clients. And as long as you're able to build that relationship, get along with the people, be a good vibe in the studio, everybody's happy, and you're getting the job done, and it's not frustrating for them and all that, I think that's the most important thing, that they can trust you and they can depend on you. And once you develop that relationship with someone, not just one person, but a lot of people, then that's the key to making it in the business for me. And I was making Snoop, I started working with Snoop on his records probably on 92, 93, and we were working on records for a few years, and he then was doing concerts, a lot of concerts, a lot of shows, and he was getting the guy that came along with the system to mix the show. And he got sick of that, and he was like, I want my live sound to be as good as my records. And he's really just thought engineer is an engineer. He didn't know some guys were specifically for studio, some guys were specifically for live. But he just said, I'd love you to come mix my shows and make me sound like you do on the records. And luckily, like I said, I was just making money through college trying to survive by mixing live bands, because it was easier to get live work than it was studio work. So I would mix the live bands. Luckily, I knew how to do it. So by the time he asked me to go on the road with him, I was very secure. I wasn't scared of doing that. I was like, oh no, what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to do live sound or anything. I knew how to do it all, you know? And I think that made a big difference, you know, and also for my versatility, so that it would get me out of the studio sometimes, because sometimes you just get surrounded by those four walls and you're there for all year long and you don't know. And this way I would switch it up. I'd be in the studio sometimes I'd be on the road. And, you know, it was a fun part for me. And again, with building relationships, not too many sound people get to ride the artist's bus, you know. They usually are on the crew bus. But Snoop and I got along so well, and he has me ride his bus. I sit in the back with him, we hang out, we talk, and we've been doing that for 20 years now on the concert. And talking about building relationships, I mean, that's how it's done, you know.